So part of my Vincentian journey starts with my very first service immersion trip at DePaul to Los Angeles, California. That was my very first trip where I started to realize a lot of the social injustices that was happening in Los Angeles that was very similar to Chicago. And that was kind of my moment where I started making these larger connections. I was starting to realize that there were a lot of issues happening across the country that had a lot of similarities with each other. And so I started seeing this kind of this bigger picture, but at the same time I didn't see how I fit into that bigger picture. I wasn't sure how my personal development was going to affect how I wanted to contribute to the larger community. So I kept asking myself all these bigger questions, and I just wanted to keep searching, I didn't even know that this was the journey that I had decided to start. So my journey continued with my second trip to Tuba City, Arizona, and that was kind of a very big moment for me where I started to realize that through the stories that I was hearing and through the people that I was meeting, I started to see their brokenness and the beauty of what it was like for them to share their brokenness, and I started to realize how I was ignoring my own brokenness, and I didn't realize that I wasn't feeling whole, and I didn't realize that that was kind of what was missing, that I wasn't having a good self-understanding of myself and what that looked like with my kind of ascension journey throughout kind of these service immersion trips. So I started asking myself, what in these moments of reflection, these moments of silence, I started to think, what were the things that were making me feel alive? What were my passions? How did I want to develop as a person? So I then came to my Fulville moment, actually, in a tiny little place called Bladensburg, Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. I had the absolute beautiful opportunity to stay with the Daughters of Charity there, and I had a truly beautiful Vincentian hospitality experience with the sisters. They showed me a kind of strength that they pulled from God that I had never seen in anyone before. I think it was interesting just because before even coming to college, I grew up Christian. I grew up in a very Christian household, went to church on Sundays, was in Sunday school, but once I came to college, I really disconnected, and I didn't feel like I was relating to that part of myself that I had left behind when I moved away, and I was still searching. I was trying to figure out what these bigger questions were of how did I define my spirituality, what was, again, my self-understanding of how that part of my life played into me. So with staying with the Daughters of Charity, I had that Fulville moment where, St. Vincent had this really significant conversation in Fulville where he kind of came to that self-understanding of what his bigger calling was, like what his turning point in his spiritual journey was. So once I was there, I had this intentional prayer that I was doing on a daily basis that I hadn't done in years, and I had no idea that this was it, that this was what I was missing, and this is how I started to see all these puzzle pieces coming together of the service and my passion for fighting for social injustices and my personal development and how I saw my spirituality, which was honestly one of the most beautiful things, seeing how all these pieces actually fit together and they're not compartmentalized in my life. And so, thinking about how Fulville was Vincent's spiritual turning point, that was my Bladensburg, Maryland was my modern version of my Fulville moment. So my invitation to you all as part of the Vincentian family is to take a second and think about what your Fulville moment is. Like, what is that moment of self-understanding that you come to realize and see kind of what is your own calling. So that is my invitation for you all.